and welcome to the Canada News with your host Divya. Right now, let's take a look at the headlines. Winnipeg Springs Church faces online backlash after photos appear to show maskless grid ceremony. Dry spring can create wildfire trouble for Western Canada. More than 24 arrested, including activist Chardikla Barman in BC anti-logging protest. Now news in detail. A Winnipeg church that has rapidly flaunted public health orders appeared to have held an in-person graduation ceremony without mask in violation of Manitoba's current pandemic restrictions. Springs Church posted a series of photos on Instagram, one of which shows more than a dozen people dressed in a formal attire standing on the stage. It's not clear yet when or where the photos were taken, but a backdrop behind the people in the photo reads Spring College Graduation 2021. According to its Instagram page, the college is a full-time program for students aged 18 to 25. The college offers a biblical studies program and a leadership and a management program. Its website says screen grabs of the pictures continues to circulate on social media, prompting criticism of the church. Current public health orders in effect since May 8 prohibit all indoor religious, cultural and community gatherings in the province. Manitobians have been urged to stay home and avoid gatherings as the province grapples with a sharp rise in COVID-19 case during its third pandemic wave. Wildfire conditions are cause for concern this year as parts of Saskatchewan, Manitoba and British Columbia reports either significant drought or record low rainfall between January and April. However, the severity of the wildfire season will depend on what kind of weather the next few months bring. Mike Fellingen, a professor of wildland fire at the University of Alberta, said May is the busiest month of wildfires in Alberta and the June and July for the rest of Canada except for BC. Where it is August, it just doesn't depend on June. He said it depends on the weather during June, July and August. The recent trend, Flangian said, has seen a decrease in the number of fires but an increase in the area burned caused by more lightning strikes. He also said lightning caused fires happen in remote areas tend to be the larger and occur in clusters that may overwhelm fire management authorities. Mounties say more than 24 people have been arrested near Port Renfrew, BC as officers enforce a court injunction ordering the removal of black cats set up to protest old-growth logging. Police say 2 people were arrested after being removed from a structure hanging between 2 trees along a remote Forest Services road on Vancouver Island. RCMP says after the initial arrest, a group of people formed blocking traffic along the service road and resulting in the arrest of roughly 25 people. Activists say Chardikla Barman, one of the organizers of the 1990s War in the Woods protest against old-growth logging, was arrested during the police sweep. Mounties say those arrested were offered the opportunity to leave or be arrested. Activists even say very little of the best old-growth forests remain in BC and the Fairy Creek is the last unprotected intact old-growth valley on the southern Vancouver Island. Police have now arrested 59 people over the course of protest. A smiling crowd of unmasked people filing the largest room in the White House. A visiting head of the state welcomed with pomp, circumstances and handshakes. A 94-year-old Medal of Honor recipient receiving a joyous hug from the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris. The White House is springing back to life thanks to growing availability of the COVID-19 vaccine and a recent relaxation of the federal guidance on the mask and distancing. The Biden administration is embarrassing the look and the feel of pre-pandemic days on the Sanavia Avenue. More West Wing staffers are turning up there for work and more reporters will be doing so as well, as the White House spreads the message that a return to normal is possible with the vaccinations. More than 50% of Canadians have now received at least 1 dose of COVID-19 vaccine. Data compiled from provincial and territorial health authorities shows that more than 20.6 million doses have been injected across the country, with 50.01% of the population getting at least 1 jab as of today. Meanwhile, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization has updated its guidance on the second shots, recommending that the patients receive the same vaccine in round 2 as they did in the first time. But if that vaccine is unavailable, NACI suggests taking Johnson & Johnson in place of Oxford AstraZeneca and taking Moderna in place of Pfizer BioNTech or vice versa. Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Theresa Tam issued a statement saying Canada has over 30% fewer active cases compared to mid-April when the pandemic third wave crested. Ontario's Tourism Minister Lisa McLeod has announced that more than 4 million financial assistance is being provided to 54 cultural tourism organizations in the province to support local productions. Funds specially for organizations that have been most affected by the pandemic.
Dakota, and thanks all of you for joining us. In particular, I'd like to say thank you to Kathleen and to John for joining us. As many of you know, my sectors were hit first, hardest, and will take the longest to recover as a result of COVID-19. We, previous to the pandemic, represented a spectacular double the bottom line, which included $75 billion in economic activity, employing hundreds of thousands of people, and of course being part of the social fabric of why we love where we live. And this announcement today is a little bit about that. But we have experienced a triple threat. That is the healthcare crisis, the ensuing financial and economic crisis, and then the social crisis. And as part of the social recovery and economic recovery of Ontario, we really want to be a part of that, to make sure that that what makes us proud to love where we live here in Ontario remains. And so that's what this announcement is about today. It's about the economic and social recovery of the province of Ontario on the heels of yesterday's announcement of a three-step approach to gradually reopen our economy, with a fair amount of that work being done in this ministry as we open the economy. We know that in pre-pandemic days, every dollar this ministry invested into a festival or event would yield a $21 return for that local economy. I personally feel it's important to continue to invest in cultural attractions and position Ontario and all of ourselves for economic and social recovery. Today's announcement builds off of the $105 million increased investment over the next 2 years to the Ontario Trillium Foundation, the $35 million increase to the Ontario Arts Council over the next 2 years, the $100 million investment that we have made into the Ontario Travel and Tourism Small Business Grant, the $100 million that we have invested into the Tourism Recovery Program, and hopefully this summer we'll be able to engage in the $150 million travel incentive across Ontario. Along with Kathleen and John, I'm pleased today to announce $4 million for 54 cultural attractions and events throughout the Ontario through the Ontario Cultural Attractions Fund, which the ministry supports. These events include virtual events, drive-in and drive-through events, as well as events that may take place at a later date if they receive public clearance and guidance. A few examples are Opera Atelia's 35th anniversary, which will showcase their performance online in Toronto. Karasaga's Global Festival, which has been postponed, but will be able to, once it's safe to do so, continue its programming. Friends of the Chippewa Park's 100th anniversary is scheduled for later this summer, and the Festival Franco-Ontarian here in the city of Ottawa, where I'm from, is scheduled for the fall.
Ontario's Chief Medical Officer Dr. David Williams have announced that second dose of the AstraZeneca dose will be administered in the province. He also said citizens who received the first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine on March 19 from the week of May 24, they may contact pharmacies for a second dose. The first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine is banned in the province.
And administration of the first doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. This decision was made out of an abundance of caution and due to an observed increase in the rare blood clotting condition known as vaccine-induced immune thrombotic thrombocytopenia, or VITT. We did so because we needed to take time to review the data and to consult with our partners, including Public Health Ontario and health experts, and now we are confident we can now offer a second dose of AstraZeneca vaccine. So today, we're announcing that Ontario is moving forward with second dose administration of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, beginning with those who received their first dose of vaccine between March the 10th and the 19th, 2021. The first group of individuals in the province who had received the AZ type of vaccine. I want to make sure nothing's more important than the health of Ontarians, and for the best protection against the COVID-19, it is vital that everyone who received the AstraZeneca vaccine for their first dose receives the second dose. Data from the United Kingdom at this time, because initially we had the data related to the much reduced risk of VITT, was initially 1 in 1 million, but they've updated their data as I had asked they would do. And we now say it is 1 in 600,000, still very, very low. But we did want to make sure we had the accurate data to give to the public. For a limited time now, during the week of May 24th, individuals who received their first dose of AstraZeneca vaccine during the period of March 10th to 19th, 2021, may opt for an earlier dose interval of 10 weeks with informed consent. That means that you understand the data and information, you can talk to your provider and they can answer your questions. Choosing to receive the second dose of AstraZeneca vaccine at the 10-week interval is safe and provides strong protection against the COVID-19 infection. Individuals who are eligible and do not receive their second dose of AstraZeneca vaccine at the 10-week interval during the week of May 24th will be able to schedule their appointment for a second dose of AstraZeneca at the 12-week interval. Those who receive the first dose of vaccine between March 10th and 19th, 2021, can contact the pharmacy or primary care provider where they receive their first dose to book an appointment beginning the week of the 24th. Individuals who do not receive their second dose at the 10-week interval during the week of May 24th will have the ability to receive a second dose of AstraZeneca vaccine within the recommended interval of 12 weeks. The province is also looking closely at available data and evidence from a clinical trial in the UK with early promising results of administering doses of 2 different vaccines.
Federal Transport Minister Omar Al-Gabara has announced that Canada will continue its ban on flights from Pakistan and India until at least June 21. They will have to show a negative report for the COVID-19 to travel again.
Our battle against COVID-19 continues. On April 22nd, Transport Canada issued a notice to ban all direct commercial and private passenger flights from India and Pakistan for 30 days based on public health advice to reduce the importation risk of COVID-19 and its variants. We are now extending this measure through June 21st. Les vols directs de l'Inde et du Pakistan sont interdits jusqu'en juin. So, direct commercial and private passenger flights from India and Pakistan will continue to be denied permission to arrive in Canada. We're also extending the third country pre-departure testing requirements for these countries. This means that passengers who depart from India or Pakistan, bound for Canada via an indirect route, must obtain a valid COVID-19 test result from a third country, not India or Pakistan, before boarding a flight to Canada. These ongoing measures will remain in place to help protect Canadians and to manage the elevated risk of imported cases of COVID-19 and variants of concern into Canada. And I can say that we have seen a significant reduction in the number of positive cases of COVID-19 arriving from international flights since this restriction was put in place. There's still increased pressure on our healthcare system due to the pandemic, so we must continue to be vigilant. Canada currently has some of the strongest border restrictions in the world, with a strict 14-day quarantine, government-approved accommodation measures, and a ban on foreign nationals except in narrow circumstances. These measures also remain in place. They are based on a range of data and advice from public health experts. Our government's measures have resulted in a 96% reduction in air traffic and 82% reduction in land traffic into Canada. This has significantly reduced the importation of COVID-19 into the country. We're also constantly adapting our border measures in response to new evidence and will continue to do so as the situation evolves. Our government's top priority is protecting Canadians' health and safety. And our response to the global COVID-19 pandemic has always been guided by the latest science and research, and it will continue to be. As vaccines roll out across the country, public health measures remain the foundation of our pandemic response. Vaccination is one of the most effective ways to protect against COVID-19. When it is your turn to get vaccinated, please do so. We must get our vaccine rates as high as possible.
So that's all we have in this edition. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more updated news.